Hi friends, well here we are again, and you probably thought I forgot about you, but it's been a busy time, and also, truthfully, I don't think a whole lot to talk about. I can't remember where we left off, so that doesn't help, but I know on the last video I was talking about the Keck, so that might be a good place to start, Keck Trail. I did get as far as Grand Marais, Minnesota, and it was so great to be back in Grand Marais and see the people at Stone Harbor. The bad news is I was still sick, and guess what? Turned out being mononucleosis. So that respiratory infection from way back when, the beginning of my hike that wouldn't go away, and then being so desperately ill in Ohio with the crippling fatigue and all of that. Finally found out what it was, and started getting better once I got myself on massive doses of vitamin C. So in the meantime, my mileage dropped off, and I was just, my legs were like rubber, and I really wasn't able to do a lot of hiking. But many thanks to Jack from Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply, an amazing store in Grand Marais, who put me up for a couple days while I was recovering and helped me get back to the trail. I was also lucky enough to meet Sarah Hamilton through Jack, and Sarah has come out with an amazing line of backpacking food, and the name of her company is Camp Chow. And she has an incredible variety, but that's not the amazing part. That's not the only amazing part. The other amazing part is that this food, I think, can actually revolutionize the way that backpackers eat on the trail. As you know, I don't carry a stove or cook on the trail, and Sarah has come up with this line of food, casseroles, desserts, just everything you can think of. And all you have to do is add like a half a cup of cold water to the bag of food, let it rehydrate for 10 minutes, and you've got anything from spaghetti to turkey with dressing to broccoli and cheese casserole. The desserts are cheesecake, couscous with cinnamon and honey, which is delish, and rice pudding. I mean, it just goes on and on. So she owns the restaurant called Trail Center, and that's on the Gunflint Trail outside of Grand Marais. And it's a restaurant and a gift shop, and you walk in and the walls are just lined with all of this Camp Chow. So I hope you'll research that, Google it, like Camp Chow and Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply on Facebook. That would be a huge help to both Jack and Sarah. So Jack connected me with Sarah, and I'm kind of being her guinea pig for the food and trying it out and then giving suggestions on what I think might improve it. So that's been kind of fun. Loved being back in Grand Marais. Grand Marais is just a delightful little town, and it's kind of sad to leave. I will have a chance to go back, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the bad news is, because I was so sick and had to stay on schedule, as I mentioned, Al Learned, who thru-hiked the North Country Trail last year, 76 years old, was willing to fly from his home in Washington and meet me to hike the Keck Trail. And his son, Craig, was willing to come from Portland and help his dad get to the trailhead and help me get to the trailhead, and then hike a few miles with us, turn around, go back to Portland for a couple days while Al and I hiked, and then return again to pick up his dad. So I wound up going to Heston's Lodge, which is right off the Gunflint Trail, and staying there until they met up with me the night before we started our hike. Now, what that means is that I did not hike the border route trail. I was sick, and so I jumped ahead, which means I now have all these logistical nightmares that I have to take care of to get back to the boundary waters and hike the border route trail, but we'll do whatever it takes, as you know. So The Keck, let's talk about the Keck. The Keck, you know, I was just terrified of this trail and didn't want to hike it alone. Let me tell you, I loved the Keck. And I came away with such strong feelings that were almost completely opposite of what I felt about it before I hiked it. I truthfully feel that the reports that I got back were either way overblown as far as how bad it was, or the hikers that were reporting back didn't have the necessary hiking experience to get all the way through the Keck. Now, I'm not saying the Keck is an easy trail. It isn't easy by any stretch, but it could be. It could be very easy if it was maintained. So here's the story. It turns out that the Keck is an 85-year-old trail, almost 100 years, and it was originally built as an access for Forest Service personnel. This is a beautiful trail. It breaks my heart to see it be let go and not maintained, because my feelings now are that if it's going to be a part of the North Country Trail, it's one of the gems in the crown of the North Country Trail, and it needs to be maintained. And basically, our trek was 3 days, about a little over 13 miles each day. We broke it into 3 equal parts. And the first day, well, I was just feeling miserable. I didn't think I was going to be able to hike. My legs were like rubber. I had to take a lot of pauses, a lot of breaks. And the first 2 miles, I was just thinking, I've got to turn around and go back. I'm not going to be able to do this. But I hung in there, and then things started getting better. So we made it through the first day and camped at Agamock Bridge, which was a lovely campsite and beautiful terrain. But here's the thing with the Keck. It's hugely overgrown. However, I was the pathfinder for the entire 3 days. That means I was out front and finding our route. I never once lost the route. And I'm really proud of that, first of all. And second of all, it's not that hard to stay on track, because even though you're in foliage up past your head, if you separate it, you can see the tread under your feet. So as long as you keep getting an eyeball on that tread, you're going to be just fine. So between that and our maps, you know, we did really well. And the biggest problems were twofold. First of all, the beaver dams are a nightmare, because you're in areas of grasses that are up to your chest or your eyeballs, and you can't see what's underneath you, and there's no tread around the beaver dams. So, you know, because it's tufts of grass, T-U-F-T-S, tufts of grass, you could be standing on top of a mound, a very solid mound, with 1 foot 1 minute, and then you take a step forward with the other foot, and you're plunged into a hole up to your knee. So very unlevel terrain around the beaver dams. There are no bog bridges around the beaver dams, wilderness area. And then, of course, finding the route after you get around the beaver dam back into the forest. But we managed. The trail is marked in several ways. There were rock cairns frequently, not enough to actually follow the trail, but you had your tread for the rest of the time. So the rock cairns were tremendously helpful, and also there had been blue, pink, orange ribbons tied to show you the way in places where it was a little sketchy. So between those things, we were able to find our way with no problem. And the first day was quite rocky, which I considered to be a danger, because, as I say, you know, if I'm on a trail and I can't see my feet, now it's a dangerous trail. And I didn't see my feet almost the entire Keck. So, but the first day was rockier than the other 2 days. And it had beautiful views, so definitely worth it. But I feel very strongly that you need to have a partner if you're going to hike the Keck, because when you can't see the trail and the first day is as rocky as it was, you know, you can easily have your foot slip off into a hole, or as I had happen, slip off in between two rocks, so your foot is kind of wedged there, and if you twist the wrong way at the wrong time, you could easily snap an ankle. So it was slow going, cautious. Caution is, key. But we made it, and the biggest challenges were the overgrowth and the thorns. Oh my gosh, my legs were shredded when I came out of the kick, from my knees to my ankles, the front of my ankles. That's the part that was pushing through the raspberry bushes and the thimbleberries and these thorns. The bushes were as high as I was. But underneath, at the trail level, were those hard brown sticks and stems from past years that still had the huge thorns on them. And so I would literally have to pick apart the raspberry bushes, take a step, lift up my leg, crash it down on all the lower thorns, and take a step, and then do that all over again. So obviously my pace was very slowed. But I had no solution, because I wasn't going to put my rain gear on and have my rain gear tore to shreds. And I wasn't going to put my convertible pants on and have those torn to shreds. Now, in hindsight, the perfect solution, I don't like gaiters, and I don't carry gaiters, but gaiters would have been the best possible solution on the keck. That's my feelings, and they should be knee-high gaiters. As it was, I came out just... by the end of the first day, I was just in such agony that every time something would scratch my ankles, right where the front of my foot meets my legs, my leg bones, it was like someone taking a razor, a straight razor, and just cutting over and over and over again. It was that painful. And so I basically had one massive cut about this long across the top of my ankles where I was pushing through the thorns. So just be aware of that if you want to hike the keck. It's completely doable. It's lovely. It is a beautiful trail, and we've got to figure out a way to save this for future hikers. So, it's just too good to let go. In the meantime, if it's not maintained and nothing is done, I would say you've probably got about 5 years, and that might be pushing it a little bit before you lose all tread and the chance to hike this wonderful section of the North Country Trail. What else do I want to tell you about the keck? There was something else I was thinking. Well, anyway, I hope you get a chance to get out and see it. As I say, the first day has all the views. After that, you're kind of in the forest. It was a real adventure. I had a GPS with me, as did Al, but we only used it maybe half a dozen times, and that was really just to confirm that we were, in fact, where we thought we were, and we always were. So, no problem. Now, the bad news is, this was really tragic. The second day out, around 2 o'clock, Al and I stopped at the burn area, and the burn area is quite green. It's not charred and black like I thought it would be, so it was really not a problem getting through that area. But we stopped for lunch, and it was at that point that Al realized that he had left his wallet, his bag with his wallet, his headlamp, his knife, back at the last campsite. It was just unbelievable, because by that point we had come through 8 miles of the most horrific trail. And he was going to have to, he was wanting to finish the hike and then have his son Craig take him back to the beginning and hike 13 miles in to our first campsite. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. Leave now and go back now. And there was nobody else on the trail, so that wasn't an issue as far as someone else finding it. We didn't think. We didn't see any other people until the last day, and that was just some father and his 2 sons going in for an overnighter towards the beginning of the trail on the snowbank side, which is the west side. But anyway, so I talked him into leaving. He didn't want to leave. He thought, I would be afraid to carry on by myself. I wasn't by that point. I was like, this trail is no big deal. So he turned around, he hiked back, and I continued on. So I was on my own for about 24 hours, finished hiking that day, left a note in the middle of the trail for Al to let him know where I was camping in case he did some night hiking and came back. And then the next morning I carried on. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was stopped at a stream to camel up and get more water. And here comes Al plowing down the trail. And he looked awful. He was black and blue. His arms were just covered in bruises. And his color was bad. He looked to me like he'd almost been running down the trail to try to catch up to me. And I just felt horrible for him. So he stopped, caught his breath, could hardly even talk when he got there. Did not find his wallet, did not find his bag of gear, you know. And I just was heartsick about that he went to all that trouble and re-hiked the Keck. The Keck has not been kind to Al. And he got lost on the way back. So he never made it back to the original campsite. He wound up camping at Howard Lake because he wound up at some other lake that he hadn't intended to get to. Somehow found his way back to Howard Lake, and then from there back to the trail. So I teased him about that. I said, well, you're just out of your element without your Pathfinder, you know. But anyway, so we carried on. We finished our hike by 6 o'clock that day. I still had some energy. Now, 2 days ago, my legs were rubber, so I was doing better. So anyway, we separated for the night. Al wanted to camp. Of course, he had done many more miles than I had because of doubling back. So he camped at the snowbank parking lot, and I carried on and camped a little closer to town. I wanted to get some of the 20-mile road walk out of the way going into Ely. And then some guy in a Jeep came, and he says, do you need any help? I said, no, I'm just going to find a place to camp and call it a night. And he said, well, my buddy has a cabin right across the street, and he said he hasn't been up here for years. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you camped on his deck. So that was great. So I got to camp on the deck of this cabin. Poured rain that night, so I had a nice overhang, completely protected me. I said, he said, is there anything else I can do for you? I said, the only other thing I'm craving is, you know, to get washed up. I just feel icky coming throughout the burn area and everything. So he takes off. He's a year-round resident on Snowbank Lake, it turns out. And he comes back with like a 5-gallon bucket. I don't know if it was that big, but anyway, of warm water, body wash, and beer, soda, Gatorade, vitamin water, spring water, and the biggest piece of homemade apple pie you've ever seen. It easily would have fed me and Al, and I felt so bad that Al wasn't with me to enjoy any of this. And it turned out that poor Al, he got, you know, that when the rain started, he didn't even have a headlamp to set up his tarp, so he had to somehow struggle and make that work. But I guess he did okay. Anyways, I had this lovely evening and pigged out on apple pie, not beer, which I don't like, but I gratefully accepted the spring water, and then the next morning went on my way. So Al came plowing down behind me about an hour after I was on the road walk to Ely, and you know, he wasn't out there doing any through hikes, so he hitched into Ely. His foot was bothering him and his neck, and I continued on. So his son met him, and Al was actually due to start the Ice Age Trail, a through hike of the Ice Age Trail. But now instead he and Craig, his son, wound up going back to the beginning of the Keck, hiking 13 miles in to the first campsite together through that nightmare of trail, and never found the wallet. So it's gone. He could not fly home without identification. His ID was in it. So he had to take a bus. Long story short, he's replaced everything. Now a week or two out, he's within a couple days ready to go and going to continue with his plans to hike the Ice Age Trail. So that's the story of the Keck, and it was quite an adventure. I wouldn't have missed it for the world looking back on it. I hope you get a chance to get out there and hike it. Now, Joe Johnson was a fellow that I met along the trail who was also a big help to me, and this is just within the last couple days. He and his family have a cabin on 10 Mile Lake, and so he helped me run errands and get resupplied, and got to drive in his nifty little white Miata, and he took me to see the headwaters of the Mississippi River, which was very cool. That was one thing on my list of things to do while I was in this area, so that was great. And then that evening he was gracious enough to want to take me out and show me 10 Mile Lake. So he got this big beautiful boat down off of whatever that thing is with the wheel. He let the boat down into the water. And we headed out, and it was kind of getting dark, so I said, well, if we're going to go, we better go now. So we headed out, and we got a nice tour of the lake. It was probably 9:30, and we were heading back home, kind of moving pretty good across the lake. Huge, huge lake, huge lake. And the engine blows up. No good deed goes unpunished. I felt so bad. So here's this young fellow. He's, I don't know how old Joe was, 35, young to me. Anyway, now he's paddling with one paddle. He won't let me help. And he is paddling for 2.5 hours to try to get us back to shore. But this lake is so massive that it seems like we're not getting any closer. We were, but it didn't seem like it. And he was just completely wore out after 2.5 hours. Long story short, 1 o'clock in the morning, we got back to the cabin after making a 911 call and getting towed in by the sheriff. So thank goodness for people who are willing to come out and help stranded boaters. You know, we were out there screaming at the top of our lungs to other boaters who just either didn't hear us or ignored us. I can't imagine that anybody would ignore someone that needed help. So I'm guessing they didn't hear us, but the lake being so huge, you know, who knows. But anyway, so that was that story. Got back on the trail and got as far as 71, Highway 71. And I knew that I had another set of trail angels up ahead of me, Bruce and Linda Johnson. Great people. And I am talking to you now from their home in Park Rapids, and they have just been amazing. I got to have a really enjoyable day with them yesterday off trail, ran some errands, got ready for the next stretch, and also they're on a lake, you know, Long Lake, so I got another boat ride, and we went to the other side of the lake and visited Deb and Mike, who's first cousins with Bruce, and just tossed back some homemade wine, and just a lovely, lovely time. So the night before, Florence and Carter came to meet with me, and they are actually heading up the North Country Trail Association conference. I guess it's just the Minnesota group that's doing it, putting it on in Duluth. And so, you know, this is a busy time for everybody, so I'm just trying to get the video blog done and get out of their hair, get back on the trail, which let's talk about the trail now. It's impossible. It's a beautiful trail. Bruce and Linda have put in such an incredible amount of work in this section of the trail. They've built a beautiful trail. They've built beautiful campsites. They have an amazing guidebook / data book for Minnesota, for this area. And they developed a new set of maps, very beautiful maps as well for their sections. So it pains me to say I've not been able to walk the trail. The mosquitoes are out of control. What is shocking me is that there are more mosquitoes in this area as I've been moving west than there were in the boundary waters. That doesn't make any sense to me with all the lakes and whatnot that are there. The difference is, even though Michigan and Wisconsin had a far greater number of mosquitoes, these mosquitoes are much fiercer. So every time I try to go on trail, I hose myself down with bug spray. And it doesn't matter what kind of bug spray. It can be 100% DEET, or it can be off or repel. It doesn't matter. They ignore it. It's like you have nothing on. They just bite right through it. And every time I try to step on the trail, I'm flailing like a mad woman. You know, they're under my pack, and I just can't keep up. I'm slapping myself silly walking down the trail, and it's just impossible. So I've been doing road walking, and no regrets, no apologies. It is what it is, and I'll do whatever I have to do to keep moving westward. So we have 150 miles left to do in Minnesota. My goal is to be done by the end of August, and then we have 437 miles to do in North Dakota. North Dakota, woohoo! Whoever thought I'd be able to say I made it to North Dakota? Wow, that's incredible to me. Anyway, once we get there, I'm hoping to get that pounded out in about 2.5 weeks, double back, do the border route, pick that up, then I have to head to New York, start marching. So as near as I can figure, once I get to New York, I've still got 1,260 miles to go. But remember way back when I said I had hiked 1,500 miles and it was a drop in the bucket and the numbers never seemed to get smaller? Excuse me. Well, the number's getting smaller, and by the time I get to North Dakota, the first number of remaining miles will be a 1. So I will have gone from the first number being a 4 and the second number being a 6 to the first number being a 1, and I'm looking forward to that. So within 150 miles, you know, I'm past the halfway mark now. Within 150 miles, the first number will be a 1, and that blows me away. However, my goal is to be in New York no later than October 1st. That means I'll have 1,260 miles to get done, and I'm hoping to have it done by the end of November. Pound out 600 miles in New York, 200 in Pennsylvania, and then the remaining 430 miles of Ohio. I'm going to have to keep moving, and it's going to take me a solid 2 months, no question. So, you know, I was saying I'll probably be out here till the snow flies, and I'll probably be out here at Christmas. I'm hoping that won't happen, but if it does, it does. Anyway, we're getting it done. It's absolutely incredible to me. Been a lot of challenges on personal levels, emotional levels, you know, physical levels, and what I have decided. By the way, I was able to do another interview yesterday for the Park Rapids newspaper, and when I was in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, I had some wonderful trail angels, Sally and Dave. I don't want to leave them out. They found me on the Mesabi Bike Trail when I was hiking that section and offered me a place for that night. And then they put me in touch with their friend at the radio station and the newspaper, so I was able to be on NPR radio a second time and had another article in the Grand Rapids, Minnesota paper. So now Anna came out yesterday and interviewed me. Bruce and Linda had contacted her. But what I wanted to tell you is that I wound up telling her that when it's all said and done, this hike for me has changed into a hike of people, the people that I meet along the way. It's no longer about the trail, it's about the people along the trail. And so I don't look at mileage anymore. I just keep marching. I don't even give it a second thought. I just go. But the people I've met have been over the top incredible. And I just can't say enough for all of them who've helped me. And I actually have another one tonight. I feel almost guilty because I'll be hiking half a day, and then Ray, who is quite involved in the trail in this area, he and his wife are taking me in. I'm just like, fine. You know, I love meeting these people. I love learning about their lives and socializing with them and laughing with them. And, you know, they're just totally amazing people. So thanks to all of the trail angels along the way. I guess that's it for now. I probably will not be talking to you again until New York at the very earliest. I know these videos keep getting spaced out further and further, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. I have to prioritize, and it's very hard for me to get computer access, as you know, to upload these. So, and then once again, there's not always that much to say, but you know, we're looking at the end of 800 miles in Minnesota, and and the end is in sight. So, good things are still happening out here. So, if you're in the Duluth area this weekend, I hope you'll stop in and attend the North Country Trail Conference that's there. And, you know, I look forward to telling you that I'm back out east and on the last leg of my journey. So, I think of you all. I appreciate you following me, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.